And we are live for episode 212 of Trek Live. How you doing today, Dan?
Doing great. I'm happy that I got a new monitor here, so I had to shuffle some wires around. So I'm glad that I'm coming through clearly, and I'm excited to talk some Star Trek today.
Nice. Yeah, this is our first kind of traditional old school topic in a while. We've done a lot of rewatch recaps and kind of touching on news in the Star Trek world for the last little bit. This feels like kind of a throwback to the kind of thing we would pretty much hang our hat on every week, kind of picking something like hero ships or something general like this to just kind of jump into and see where it takes us. But this was kind of your idea to jump into this. And I guess we'll do the rewatch recap well, let's just do the rewatch recap. I guess figure out where we are in that, and then we'll get into why we picked this topic and jump in. But where are you in season 2 of TOS?
So with us doing this bi-weekly, there are some bigger chunks of episodes that we go through. So I believe last time we spoke, I had maybe just watched Amok Time, which is the first episode, season 2 of the original series.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm down to 13, I think it is. I think I just watched Obsession. So whatever episode number that is.
13.
The next episode I'll be watching is Wolf in the Fold. But yeah, 13 episodes. That's a pretty long run. I think indicative of season 2, there are some really great and strong episodes. And there are some not so great episodes in that run. So, yeah, it's been really good. I've been really enjoying TOS. Even, episodes that aren't the best still feels fun, and
they have their charms.
Yeah, they have their charms. So it's been good.
Yeah, a little bit ahead of you. I just watched last night the Immunity Syndrome, so I'm like an old school DVD watching parlance. I think I'm like a disc ahead of you.
Yeah, you're disc ahead.
Yeah,
4 or 5 episodes. Yeah.
Yep. You do a little better than me during the week too. I think generally speaking, you put more of a dent during the midweek run. I might watch like one episode in the Monday through Thursday stretch of days where typically. So by next weekend, we'll probably be pretty close. But I totally agree with you. I think season 2, in my opinion, has always been like maybe less consistent than season 1, which is where I give season 1 the edge. Season 1 doesn't have the misfires that I think, at least to this point, season 2 has had. Cat's Paw, you haven't watched it yet, but Wolf in the Fold's pretty low for me. But the hits in season 2, especially in the very beginning of season 2, that kind of coming out of the gate, and half of the episodes in the first batch are Amok Time and Mirror Mirror and the Doomsday Machine. That's a pretty great open, and some of the biggest classics in TOS's whole run come in season 2. I think some of the most like hallmark episodes, things that establish a lot of the big Star Trek ideas. A lot of the Vulcan culture gets established in Amok Time and Journey to Babel.
Klingon
stuff. Klingon stuff gets kind of expanded. We get them in a couple of episodes. We're kind of really... Season 1 is a little more inconsistent for natural reasons. They're kind of feeling it out and developing the world, all the world buildings in the initial stages. But by season 2, it's pretty clear we have the Federation, we have Starfleet, we have the Prime Directive. The mission of the Enterprise is really locked in, and everybody's
Do
role.
We have Prime Directive?
It's a little loose.
General Order 1, whatever. Yeah.
General Order 1, right?
Yeah.
For sure, it's not quite as it's not the TNG era Prime Directive. And Kirk gets to play a little looser with the rules, maybe. But the mission of the ship is pretty established, and everybody's roles are pretty well locked in. A lot of episodes that really hang their hat on the big 3, the trio. So the show is really kind of coming into its own, even though I think maybe the consistency of the episodes is a little less firing on all cylinders sometimes. But I agree. I mean, even the episodes that don't entirely work for me, the charm of the show and the talent of the cast and the science fiction ideas, even in some of the episodes that aren't as successful, make it the classic show that it is. And so I'm really enjoying it. I think some of the episodes in this part of season 2 are some of my favorite episodes to talk about, which I think in our next episode we're going to do another kind of extended rewatch recap, and I'm really excited to do that. There are episodes that I feel like, we were talking about this off air a little bit, I think because TOS has such classics that are so consistently talked about as like the best of the best, episodes like Obsession, like Friday's Child, like The Deadly Years, like Metamorphosis, The Changeling, the more middle of the road episodes, especially in this season 2, I feel like your mileage may vary a lot in terms of where people stack them.
Where really preference comes out as you're rewatching. So I think I'm big because, yeah, like Bill said, there is a little bit more middle of the road episodes, but I think personally, a person's preference definitely comes out when you start to split hairs with those middle of the road episodes.
Yeah, this would be an interesting, and actually we did do it. I'd almost want to go back and rewatch our fantasy draft with Jim from Truck Ranks a few years ago now. But this would be a fun season to do that with because of the number of episodes that kind of fall into that middle ground once you're through the big classics.
Yeah.
So we'll get into a more in-depth rewatch recap for season 2 of TOS not next week, but the following week when we come back for episode 13. And I definitely look forward to that and really diving into. I fully expect. I can't speak for you, but I'm pretty sure I'll be done season 2 by 2 weeks from today. And you may well too. You're probably going to be too. You're more than halfway, or you're at the halfway point. And, so yeah, look forward to that. And I think we should just pivot into the hero ships conversation at this point. So, this was kind of your idea. What kind of sparked, do you think?
Well,
getting into hero ships again. We've done a little bit of hero ship kinds of conversations in different formats. Guess each other's. There's an episode of that in our backlog where we guessed each other's 5 favorites. But what in recent Star Trek news do you think?
About a month ago or a few weeks ago, it was Star Trek Day, and they released a teaser for Picard season 3, which had the Titan in it. And Titan has a lot of
I think I can finish Dan's thought, at least from my. There we go. You're back. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. So the Titan was released. I think there were some mixed reviews with the Titan, and because of the mixed reviews, the Titan got me thinking about when I would first watch a show, how I felt about the quote unquote hero ship, the ship that has the main characters on it, and it's kind of based around that loosely. It gets kind of weird when you talk about hero ships, and we're talking about Deep Space Nine and a few other shows with like Picard and stuff like that. But most of the time, it seems like there's always been mixed reviews.
I remember being really mixedly received in the early days of that show. The Discovery, for absolute sure, had a lot of pushback in the early days of that show. But I do think you're definitely on something, that there's a phenomenon with some early pushback and needing to warm to the new ship of the day with these shows. Sometimes I think maybe less so. I think with like Lower Decks, when we first saw the Cerritos, I think that was kind of like in line with what people thought that show was going to be, and connected with the tone. I think the Protostar people kind of fell in love with right away.
Yeah, that's cool.
But some of these bigger live action shows, I wasn't around for TNG opening, first coming out, but I imagine that being such a departure from the design of the original Enterprise, like everything else that the Next Generation kind of endured in its early days, I'm sure there was pushback to that. So I think, kind of looking at how we first react to some of these ships and how they kind of quickly or slowly, depending on the specific circumstance, kind of grow on us over time. Uh, which ones kind of stand out to you in terms of like your own experience? Which ones do you think you needed to warm up to, and uh, are there any that you still kind of haven't necessarily warmed up to, at least at this
I
point?
Yeah, I think the D was definitely I it's what's the quote, like the clown shoe in, in space. Like I definitely need time to warm up to that. Also, the NX definitely because I think that was one of the last two shows in my first rewatch or my like first watching of all of Star Trek was maybe Enterprise and Deep Space Nine. So the NX definitely for sure. It's definitely very different from kind of what I had seen at that point.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I really had mixed reviews with. I don't think so. I just think, and the Titan, to be
The
honest, to
Titan,
be quite
yeah.
frank, the Titan for sure, because I I know the Titan is kind of different because we've technically seen it before on screen, right? Isn't it? Wasn't it in Picard earlier, or is
The,
he on it?
the Titan, the original Titan, is in Lower Decks, and
Okay.
was seen in the novels. I think it was developed as like
What
as a
did Riker come back?
oh,
What ship was that?
that's this the Zhang He.
Okay.
I'm probably mispronouncing it, but
Okay.
that's a different model.
Okay.
But it's kind of similar. It's a very kind of uh, it's it's of the Constitution sovereign kind of family, I guess. That sort of overall
Yeah.
shape, uh, old school traditional original Star Trek kind of design.
Yeah.
Definitely a different design, but similar. I think. I mean, if you get into the details, I'm sure there are
Yeah.
vast differences, but on like that first glance, they have a kind of a similar aesthetic.
But I guess what my point being is, I know I'm not trying to like dog on any of these ships.
Yeah.
My point is my perspective on these ships, on these hero ships, have changed. I now love the NX, the look of the NX, and I wish we got the refit, just like everyone else. But and same with the D, it's definitely changed my perspective too. And I think what changes my perspective is just being able to see the ships and make them feel lived in, and being able
Yeah.
to dive into the blueprints and things like that. So I'm not trying to dog on any of these ships. I know that once that we get some time on the Titan, maybe my perspective will come around. But
Yeah.
even with Deep Space Nine, it felt like just like an old empty castle kind of in space um that the architecture was such a departure for.
Hmm.
But now I love that shit. I love that space station, and I always loved the Defiant when it came in, but um the station definitely took some time to grow on me. And I think even this past week of Lower Decks, we get this typical slow moving with the ships docking up at the upper pylons. I got misty eyed and
Mhm.
teary eyed because that was just such a classic shot of Deep Space Nine.
Mhm.
So I don't want people to take people's reactions to new ships, like even Discovery. Like I feel like it was such a mixed bag of reviews and what people thought of it.
Yeah.
And now it's like it's so cool, it's so futuristic, it's all these things that we all love. So just take your first kind of
Reaction with a grain of salt.
thoughts on with a grain of salt. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we have Rob and Cyber Honey in the chat. Hello and welcome to you both. Appreciate you stopping by. And Rob's talking about Discovery specifically for him needing to warm up to it, and I think that's that's a pretty common experience as far as who people I talk to. That took some time. He says he admits that it took him a while to warm up to Discovery as the hero ship. Not entirely sure why. I think maybe because I had been so used to Enterprises, DS9, the Defiant, Voyager, and because Discovery was so different to what we've seen before, especially with the Spore Drive. I mean, and I think that's probably, and now he loves Discovery. I think there are a lot of factors with Discovery that kind of get cloudy. I mean, because it was the first time Star Trek had come back in such a long time, and it was a prequel, kind of like I kind of compare it to the Enterprise in Star Trek Enterprise with the NX-01. When you get into prequel territory and you're getting into that, like it's got to predate the Constitution and stuff that we saw in the '60s, but it's got to be futuristic for us, and it's got to make sense. It's like something that we would see in the 23rd century that makes sense.
Yeah.
As far as like sitting here watching it in 2017 or in 2001 or 2022, that's a difficult assignment, and I think both of those shows were kind of mired in the early days of in terms of getting audiences to wrap their head around, you know, whether it was using headcanon or just letting some preconceptions go, to embrace the fact that these things can do two things at once. They can predate TOS and be cool to 2001, 2017 audiences. And then in addition to that, with the Discovery, there's so much mystery surrounding that ship in the early days of that show, with the spore drive and how it's all going to fit in the timeline. Like if you go back and you put yourself back into 2017 and you're watching Context is for Kings and Choose Your Pain and Lethe, there's a lot of unanswered questions that are kind of intentionally there. It's 5 years ago now. Discovery's 5 years ago. So there are a lot of factors that I think went into people's sort of like being on their toes with Discovery the ship, let alone Discovery the series in 2017 when it was new.
Because, you know, you've got Beyond in the same year, where a lot of people really loved what they did in Beyond with, you know, Franklin, and kind of bringing back that older type of ship design with like some Enterprise influences in that. But that's another ship that definitely took some time for me, is the Kelvin. You know, the Kelvin Enterprise. I always thought that the Constitution class is so proportionate and just so well recognized. When they start to mess with the nacelles and mess with the saucer section, it messed with the proportions, and it took some time, but now it's really cool.
I think there's something to we've talked a lot on Trek Live about found family being, and you know, we're not breaking any ground here. It's pretty well known and accepted notion that Star Trek's about found family, and that all these shows are kind of connected by that idea, and watching these characters grow together and to form, you know, not just a crew, but, you know, friendships and relationships and a family. And the ship is the home. And I think because these shows spend so much time, you know, emphasizing the setting of the ship, that it's just bound to do that. I think it becomes homey and cozy and comfortable and where you want to be. And these shows were fortunate enough to, especially for the hero ships in most of the cases, the shows run for a while. Like even the original series, the shortest of them is 79 episodes. That's a lot of time. It's 79 hours on those sets, and you know, looking at that exterior skeleton of the ship. So it's kind of just bound, if you're in love with the show and you love the characters and you want to be with them. I think it's just a natural reaction to sort of want to be there, and it whether it's instant or it's slow burn, it's gonna grow on you. And you know, let alone like Deep Space Nine, Voyager, like almost 200 hours you're spending in these places, and and I think it just makes sense. And I think I found that even with the new stuff with Discovery and with the Cerritos, it's kind of homey and cozy, and it's a place you want to hang out at.
That's a great point. The more comfortable you get with the show and these characters, the more comfortable you get with the main hero ship. Yeah,
and to be honest, like I felt this last night watching, kind of dovetailing this into the sort of rewatch where we are with what we're currently watching. I feel like one of the reasons that I gave the Immunity Syndrome, which you're like again like a disc behind from at this point, it's that episode is so ship based. They spend so much time on the bridge and in sickbay working through a problem. And season 2 of TOS is so planet heavy. Like so many of the episodes revolve around like the big three beaming down to a planet, and whether it's Friday's Child or Metamorphosis or um, a piece of the action. There's a lot of time not spent on the ship. I mean, there always is, to some extent. You're cutting back to whether it's Scotty in the captain's chair trying to solve the mystery or keep the ship afloat, or it's Spock with in command while Kirk and others are down. But the Immunity Syndrome is completely, it's a bottle show. It's completely, a ton of the action on that episode takes place on the bridge. And I feel like when I watch TOS Season 2, because of just the kind of episodes that are so populated through that season, it almost feels like a coming home. Like, we get a chance to breathe. Even though the tension's really high and it's high stakes, it's just like a nice, cozy, rainy Saturday afternoon kind of episode because it's just on the bridge. And I think that actually kind of like buoys that episode a little bit for me because it's comforting to just kind of hang there and get to spend so much time with the full crew on the bridge. Kind of a weird TOS specific thing with that ship, but it actually helps that episode for me. Rob says Picard is a weird one in terms of hero ships. La Sirena feels so small compared to the others and doesn't feel as homey. But I guess that show is more about Picard than the ship. Yeah, I've said this a bunch of times just talking to people. Like, you know, Star Trek Picard.
We talked about
we have. It's not called Star Trek La Sirena. It's Star Trek Picard. It's the most of these other shows are literally called the setting of the ship. Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, Voyager, Discovery.
Except Prodigy.
Except Prodigy's not, and Strange New Worlds isn't. I mean, it's not like every single time, but like we've gotten used to that being the thing. Like it's called the ship, and the ship is the home, and it's the thing that ties all these people together. And Picard is sort of the first big divergence from that. With it's really about a person at the center of the story, and isn't as tied to a ship. And we're going to see that this season with. La Sirena is not even around anymore. The hero ship that we've kind of gotten used to for the 2 seasons is, in the ether at this point. With Agnes Girardi's Borg Queen out somewhere in the Delta Quadrant, I guess, doing its thing. But La Sirena is an interesting one, though. I mean, it is. To be honest with you, in season 1, when we were on that ship a lot, I kind of did find it refreshing and cool, and it did grow on me. Because it is so different. It's a little cargo ship, and to me, I embraced pretty quickly. We see a lot of these kinds of ships over the course of Star Trek, but a lot of the time it's like Picard or Janeway or somebody like hailing somebody in like a little cargo ship that's bouncing around. And you just kind of see it through the view screen. You don't get to like live in that ship and see what it's like to be there. And I thought it was cool to get to flesh out like what does life for a mission look like on a little garbage scow kind of a ship that's like retrofitted with Starfleet technology and Starfleeted up by Rio. So I thought that was a really cool idea, and I think they did a nice job with that. But it's very different and a departure, I guess.
Yeah. I always teed up to it kind of reflected Rios' character, where
absolutely,
it was kind of like a bachelor pad, but it was kind of like an empty old home where he was just kind of had been, done the lone wolf thing, and then kind of Seven kind of falls into that kind of category as well. But still, I just felt like it really fit Rios' lone wolf bachelor.
Absolutely, pad. Yeah, it's this old kind of former Starfleet officer who's, doesn't have a home in Starfleet anymore, but had a career and good experiences in his background, and takes that Starfleet experience with him to his new thing. Runs it like a Starfleet ship, but it's not a Starfleet ship, and that's a cool idea. And like you said, very nicely backs the idea of the Rios character and how he's kind of built from the ground up. What about an interesting one because it's unique and different, and I think we both love it in the terms of, because we both love Strange New Worlds. How do we feel about the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds being like? It's kind of like the Kelvin. I mean, it's basically the same idea. It's a spruced up, kind of freshened up version of the Constitution. taking those 60s aesthetics and design principles and re-envisioning them with modern production values in mind. And like, how has 10 episodes in Strange New Worlds kind of made you feel about the Enterprise? And I guess it's also a unique thing because unlike all these other shows, we saw the Enterprise in Discovery. Like, it's not like the new show begins and that's like our, wow, this is the new thing, and we had to like slow walk up to learning about it. And like, it's a little redesigned. Like, there's subtle differences with how the bridge is laid out and how it's lit, how it's shot in Discovery, and how it's done in Strange New Worlds when we see it in Discovery. But it's we weren't surprised by Strange New Worlds' ship. We had seen it before in a number of ways. It's the Enterprise, of course, but it's even in Discovery. Like, how has that experience sat with you, and how do you feel about the Strange New Worlds Enterprise?
I think I've been relatively positive, even when it came, like, first showed itself at the end of Discovery.
Season 1, yeah.
Season 1, yeah. I've been generally positive with it. It feels bigger, but it also feels like the Constitution class did, like the hominess of it, where we don't have a big ready room. We have a meeting area that feels kind of close knit, where the crew can come and talk and work. We have quarters that feel really homey when they do the meal. But I think, like, the hallway, sick bay, engineering feels bigger, whereas like on the Constitution class, like in TOS, I think it just, when we're in the hallway, like, it just feels like a little bit more, I don't know, tight knit, homey type.
Yeah,
but that's just modern production.
Absolutely, yeah. It's to be expected, and it's I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it, to be honest with everybody. I embrace it as it's kind of I look at these things. I don't want to get into like the canon police continuity enforcement unit kind of stuff, but my view of it though has always been like, I look at these stories being executed by artists. Like, seeing the original series is like watching. It's like a painting done by a different artist than Strange New Worlds. It's like I don't know how I'm explaining it well or not, but yeah, I'm looking at it as like two different depictions of sort of the same time, executed by different
creative
visions. Yeah, and to me that kind of aligns it enough where I'm like, whatever, like, go with it. They're tellings of stories that are done in different eras and with different styles and impressions, and two paintings of the Civil War done by two different artists who kind of emphasize different things and have different skill sets. Doesn't change the fact that the event happened and that those people were there and it happened in a certain way. It's just a different view of it, and that works for me. I know it doesn't work for everybody, but that's my way of making it happen and not getting hung up on such things. But I've been pretty happy with it. I think it's been a unique experience for all the reasons I kind of laid out, with it, having seen it in Discovery and kind of knowing what to expect because it's the Enterprise. But I think they've done a nice job of making it the Enterprise, and making it familiar and featuring a lot of the hallmarks that we expected to have, but through 2022, 2021 sort of production values.
I mean, for me, it's just like, if they had that budget and that capabilities in 1966,
what would they have done?
What would they have done? And
exactly.
And also, I think they've done a good job of, and this is just maybe an like a bigger kind of statement. I think they've done a good job of really not staying too cookie cutter. I think each iteration of Hero Ship and each iteration of ship that we've kind of got introduced to has been trying to push the boundaries and to try different things and to feel futuristic and to put cool things on the screen. And as much as people don't like change, I think that, like we've kind of talked about before, like once the ship feels lived in, I feel like we can definitely feel it, like it feels part of the Star Trek universe on a really good job. But I just feel like I would rather have the Star Trek ship designers pushing the boundary and moving forward and doing different things than just staying in 1987 style designs. So that's my thought. I know it's but on the other side of the phone, Titan in Lower Decks, but that's the Titan proper, I guess, not Titan A. I guess. This is Titan A, whatever. But yeah, I just think they've just done a good job of really, not being a cookie cutter, same old.
Yeah.
Really feeling different.
Agreed. I totally agree with that. Rob asks a really good question. I think this episode's going to run a little short, and I think that's fine. I think you're having I don't know if it's you or it's me, but we're having a little bit of an internet internet issues, and I'm having it's raining like we're getting the remnants of Hurricane Ian for those watching this in real time up here in Pennsylvania. So we got some heavy rain over here, and I don't want to tempt fate too long. But this feels like a really good question to sort of maybe end on as this is a part of our conversation proper here. Rob's asking, which of the hero ships would you want to be on if you only got one chance to visit one, and why?
Visit one or serve on, or maybe should we answer both?
Answer both if they're different answers.
They're different answers, I think.
Because you're thinking if you're talking about visit, you don't have to think about like living on it with comforts and serving on it. Obviously, you're looking for the long haul. Where do you want to live for?
Yeah, so I'll answer it this way. Visit would be a bigger ship, so I want to visit the D, obviously, and then Deep Space Nine probably, just because there's so much going on. But me personally, I'm like a small town person, so I would rather serve on a smaller. I wouldn't want to be on a relay station. Nobody wants to be on a relay station. You don't want that to be your hero ship.
No.
But I would probably stick to NX or Voyager or something like that. Really, really smaller, more tight knit with the crew. I feel like I would get lost in such a big station like Deep Space Nine, or even the D. Feels like you get lost on.
See, I think I'm going to take the exact opposite view. I think I would want to visit and check out the NX-01 as like the original early days submarine, how lean and mean can it possibly be, how much workable space is there and how much is dead space. That I would want to see that. I'd love to take a tour of the NX-01. But I think I'd want to serve on the D. I think the comfort of the Hilton in space, the carpeting, the nice lounges, the many holodecks and many things.
The amenities.
The amenities would make that. I like the idea of the luxury liner in space, and I think I get what you're saying for sure. I think you get to know your crewmates a little better on the NX and on the Voyager than you would on the D.
But quarters aren't as big.
Quarters aren't as big.
Might share
a little cabin. I think on the NX, unless you're a senior, you
definitely got a bunk.
You're bunking
with 4 other people. Yeah.
I think is it you bunk with somebody who works the opposite shift or something, kind of a deal.
Yeah.
So that's a choice to have that be your life. But I totally get it, and I would be happy to serve on any of these ships. That's for darn sure. But the D is definitely where my heart is. The Enterprise D and the Next Generation is sort of my ultimate comfort show. I think I'm finding more and more as I get older, because it's what I grew up with, and I think it's unique in its amenities and its full embrace of the idea that it's basically a really, really nice hotel that's also
It's a cruise ship.
a starship. Yeah, it's a giant cruise ship designed to
Even
satisfy human beings for it can not just a 5-year mission, a continuing mission. You might be out there for a long, long
your
time.
career.
Yeah. Yep. And I like the idea of it being able to support like multiple interests. There's science labs and all kinds of things going on. There's schools. There's all things like the number of things you could get into and the kinds of people you could meet that are experts or really good at doing this or that along all kinds of career paths and specific trades.
You don't necessarily need to be in Starfleet to be actually on and serving in the D. You can be a bartender.
You can be a bartender, a server,
crewman, cargo. Yeah,
why not? A teacher, architect, whatever.
Barber,
it seems like they're all there. A barber, you can be Mr. Mott, and have a happy life cutting hair on the Enterprise D. That's just like on the Enterprise D, you have a barber. You have your own guy or gal who cuts your hair, and you get to spill the tea with at your leisure. And definitely not going to get that on the NX. But I would love to see the NX for sure. I think that's another. Those are the two that come to mind for me: the NX-01 and the Enterprise D. The first two that flash into my head when I see your question, Rob.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on these hero ships? I would encourage people to check out our. I don't know if it's in a playlist. Well, they would be. It's in our Guess Each Other's series. We did a 3 in a row kind of Guess Each Other's. We did hero ships. We did recurring, seen multiple times ships, and we did one-offs. And they're some of our most viewed videos actually, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
And they were really fun. But that was years ago. I think one of the best reasons to come back to this topic is when we did that. I don't think the Protostar existed yet. I don't think we had seen the Cerritos yet.
Yeah.
So, that's the beauty of ongoing Star Trek with new stuff. Maybe the Cerritos was in season 1. Might have been brand new. But Strange New World certainly wasn't on the air yet. So as it's the beauty of having an ongoing show, we can double back to some topics because it's not a finite amount of shows and episodes.
And it's the beauty of having so many shows is there's so many hero ships that there's a hero ship out there for everybody. Even as measly as a California Cerritos. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, I think that'll about do it. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Appreciate everybody hanging out here today. Cyber Honey and Rob and Chad, anybody who happens to be lurking or finding this after the fact. We appreciate you taking 5 minutes, 45 minutes, however long to watch us. And we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about TOS Season 2 and a more extended rewatch recap. We'll share episode rankings and talk about our favorites and how we're feeling about the show as a whole 2 seasons in.
Yep. Thank everybody for watching. And if you want more deep dive into TOS talk, definitely hit up the Discord server and Twitter because the rankings will be there. Bill's thoughts will be there and some random talk about TOS stuff and
whatever else.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I always kind of end with this or try to. If you're interested in joining a Discord server that's kind of piggybacking on our conversation here, kind of homey and cozy and not overwhelming with hundreds and hundreds of people and many, many notifications that are going to blow your phone up. The Trek Live Discord server might be for you. We have a nice, tightly knit community of folks. NX Class Discord server for sure. We share what we're watching, what we're reading, if we're gaming Star Trek. If people want to talk about the new content, the new news, that's all happening in our server. And we occasionally have casual hangouts we call Trek After Dark, where we all kind of get together, group watch episodes, chat about what's going on in our lives and Star Trek's life. And good times are had by all. So you can DM me on Twitter at TrekFan4387. Our Twitter handles are in the description below, as in all of our videos. Feel free to reach out if you'd like to jump on board.
Thanks everybody for watching. I had a great time talking about ships as always, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Take care.